Latrese Morris-Dorsey had dated Earl Maxwell for about 4 years until right before she was murdered. Testimony today at Maxwell's preliminary hearing indicated they'd broken up and she was dating someone else. And clearly Maxwell was upset.
Mom just got shot. Mom just got shot. A 4-year-old's voice cuts through the chaos, her tiny feet running down a hallway. Her 14-year-old brother rips off his headphones, drops his Xbox controller. What do you mean? But Jada's words hit like bullets themselves. You won't believe this until you see it. But what happened next on Father's Day 2017 would destroy one family and create a hero from the ashes. Justin Dorsey races to find his mother Latrese bleeding out on their Detroit living room floor. 10 gunshots. Her ex-boyfriend's work. While a preschooler watched every second. The 911 operator's voice crackles. Is she breathing? Justin presses his hands against the wounds, trying to stop what can't be stopped. His mother's life slipping away in his arms while her killer speeds off into the night. This is insane, but it's 100% real. Earl Maxwell had called Latrese's estranged husband 20 times in 2 weeks. Made death threats, promised violence.
What did he say the first time you spoke?
When I see your wife, I'm gonna kill her. The second time he called, he reiterated that he was going to hurt her.
The police knew, the family knew, everyone knew. But knowing and stopping are two different things. Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we expose the truth behind cases that'll haunt you. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and share this video because Justin Dorsey's story needs to be heard. Tonight, we're diving into a case that'll make you question everything about domestic violence, police response, and what happens when a 14-year-old boy decides to turn the worst day of his life into fuel for greatness. Drop a comment if you think you can handle what this kid went through, because Justin Dorsey's story is just getting started. Latrese Morris-Dorsey wasn't supposed to die at 42. Born January 6, 1975 in Detroit, she'd built a life around healing people. Physical therapist by day, devoted mother by night. 3 kids of her own, 3 stepchildren she loved just as fiercely. Her hands that once helped patients walk again would never touch another soul. But let's talk about the man who stole that future. Earl Thomas Lionel Maxwell, 37 years old, 5'8" with a heavy build, bald head, stained yellow teeth that made people uncomfortable when he smiled. He had one distinguishing feature that should have been a massive red flag. Latrese, tattooed permanently on his left arm. 4 years. That's how long this obsession masqueraded as love. When Latrese finally found the strength to end things and moved to that house on Avon Avenue, Maxwell couldn't compute the word no. In his twisted mind, that tattoo on his arm meant ownership. Forever. Here's where it gets wild. Paul Dorsey, Latrese's estranged husband, starts getting phone calls, not from Latrese, from her psychotic ex-boyfriend, who can't accept reality. So the only person he could get in touch with is me, 20 times. Maxwell called Paul Dorsey 20 times in 2 weeks. And what he said during those calls will make your blood run cold. First call.
What did he say the first time you spoke?
When I see your wife, I'm going to kill her.
When I see your wife, I'm going to kill her. Paul thought maybe it was just talk. Angry ex-boyfriend blowing off steam. But Maxwell called back. Second call.
The second time he called, he reiterated that he was going to hurt her.
He reiterated he was going to hurt her. What happens next will blow your mind. Because Paul Dorsey did exactly what any decent human being would do. He warned Latrese immediately. I told her everything, Paul testified, from the beginning to when he cooled down. But here's the thing about abusers. They're master manipulators. Maxwell called Paul back a 3rd time, this time his tone completely different. Hey, let's get this business together. Like he hadn't just threatened to murder the mother of his children. Like those death threats were just a momentary lapse in judgment. Paul wasn't buying it, but what could he do? Call the police and say his ex-wife's ex-boyfriend made threats? Meanwhile, Latrese was trying to rebuild. New house, fresh start, maybe even dating someone new, which, according to court testimony was driving Maxwell absolutely insane with jealousy. The irony? Latrese worked as a physical therapist. Her entire career was about helping people recover from trauma, teaching them to walk again after devastating injuries. She understood better than most that healing takes time, patience, and the right support system. But some wounds never heal, some people never recover, and some obsessions only grow stronger when fed by rejection. Maxwell wasn't just angry about losing Latrese. He was furious that she might be happy without him, that someone else might touch the woman whose name he'd carved into his skin like a brand of ownership. Those 20 phone calls to Paul weren't random outbursts. They were a countdown, a warning system that everyone heard but nobody could stop. Because here's the brutal truth about domestic violence. Knowing someone's dangerous and proving they're about to kill are two completely different things. Paul warned Latrese. Latrese knew the threats were real. But what was she supposed to do? Hide forever? Stop living because her ex-boyfriend couldn't handle rejection? She'd moved to a new house, changed her number, cut off contact, done everything the experts tell you to do when escaping an abusive relationship. It wasn't enough, because Earl Maxwell had already decided that if he couldn't have Latrese Morris-Dorsey, nobody could. And Father's Day 2017 was when he planned to make that decision permanent. Picture Earl Maxwell for a second. Sunglasses constantly covering his eyes even indoors, that heavy build intimidating everyone around him. But the most disturbing detail? Those stained yellow teeth that made people look away when he talked. This wasn't some crime of passion. This was a man unraveling in real time, and everyone could see it happening. After Latrese cut off her phone, Maxwell's behavior escalated from obsessive to downright terrifying. He couldn't reach the woman whose name was permanently etched into his flesh, so he did what every stalker does. He found another way in. Paul Dorsey became Maxwell's unwilling messenger service. But here's what makes this case absolutely insane. Maxwell wasn't even trying to hide his intentions. During those 20 phone calls, he laid out his murder plan like he was ordering pizza. When I see your wife, I'm going to kill her. Not if I see her. When. Paul immediately called Latrese, told her everything, word for word, the threats, the tone, the chilling certainty in Maxwell's voice. Most people would pack up and disappear, get a restraining order, call the police. Latrese did what millions of domestic violence victims do. She tried to live her life anyway. They don't want you to know this, but restraining orders are just pieces of paper to men like Maxwell. Police reports are just paperwork. The system that's supposed to protect women like Latrese is built on the assumption that abusers follow rules. Maxwell had already proven he didn't follow rules. The jealousy factor was eating him alive. Court testimony revealed that Latrese might have been seeing someone new. For a normal person, that's called moving on. For Maxwell, it was the ultimate betrayal. Remember, this man had Latrese tattooed on his arm. In his twisted mind, she belonged to him forever. The idea that she could be happy, could be intimate, could build a future with someone else was driving him to the breaking point. But then Maxwell did something that shows just how calculated this whole thing was. He called Paul back a third time. Different tone entirely. Calm, reasonable, almost friendly. Hey, let's get this business together. Like those death threats never happened. Like he hadn't just promised to murder Paul's ex-wife. This wasn't a man losing control. This was a predator testing the waters, seeing if his threats had the desired effect. Paul wasn't fooled, but what could he do? Maxwell had technically taken back his threats. Legally, there was nothing to pursue. Meanwhile, Latrese was living in that house on Avon Avenue, trying to give her kids a normal life. Justin playing Xbox in his room. Little Jada running around being 4 years old. A single mom working as a physical therapist, helping other people heal while her own life was being stalked by a man who refused to let her go. The warning signs weren't just red flags. They were screaming sirens. But sometimes, even when everyone hears the alarm, nobody knows how to turn off the bomb. and Maxwell's countdown was almost over. June 18, 2017. Father's Day. While families across America were grilling burgers and celebrating dads, Earl Maxwell was loading his gun and driving to Avon Avenue. 8 o'clock in the evening. Latrese was winding down from what should have been a peaceful Sunday. 4-year-old Jada was probably getting ready for her bedtime routine. 14-year-old Justin had retreated to his room, headphones on, controller in hand, lost in his Xbox world. Just another quiet evening in the Morris-Dorsey household. Then Maxwell showed up at the front door. His excuse? He needed to drop off a car part. Innocent enough, right? Just a quick visit from the ex-boyfriend to handle some leftover business. Nothing threatening about that. But Maxwell wasn't there for car parts. He was carrying a loaded weapon, and he'd already made his intentions crystal clear during those 20 phone calls to Paul Dorsey. This wasn't a social visit. This was an execution. What happened next destroys Maxwell's entire defense story. According to his police statement, Maxwell claimed the shooting was completely accidental. His version of events? Pure fiction, designed to save his own skin. Maxwell told investigators he was just trying to reach for a cigarette lighter in his pocket when he pulled out his gun. Then, according to his fantasy version, Latrese tried to hug him, grabbed his wrist, and somehow the gun just started going off the whole time. Wait until you hear what they found that completely demolished this ridiculous story. Latrese Morris-Dorsey was shot 10 times. 10 times. Not once during a struggle. Not twice in a panic. 10 deliberate shots fired into a 42-year-old mother while her preschooler watched in absolute terror. The medical examiner's report revealed shots to the back of her head and hands, defensive wounds that proved Latrese was trying to protect herself. This wasn't some accidental discharge during a friendly hug. This was cold-blooded murder. But the most heartbreaking detail? 4-year-old Jada witnessed every single shot. While Maxwell was pumping bullets into her mother's body, little Jada was standing there watching the woman who tucked her in every night, who kissed her scraped knees, who read her bedtime stories, getting murdered right in front of her eyes. Justin, meanwhile, was completely oblivious in his bedroom, headphones blocking out the world, focused on his game, having no idea that his life was about to change forever. The gunshots stopped. Maxwell looked down at what he'd done. Latrese Morris-Dorsey, physical therapist, devoted mother, woman who spent her career helping people heal, was bleeding out on her own living room floor. And then Maxwell ran, no attempt to help. No call for an ambulance. No remorse for what he'd just done in front of a 4-year-old child. He simply fled the scene like the coward he'd always been. But Jada, brave, traumatized 4-year-old Jada, knew exactly what had happened. She ran to Justin's room, tiny legs carrying her as fast as they could, and delivered the words that would haunt her brother forever. "Mom just got shot. Mom just got shot." Justin ripped off his headphones, dropped his controller, ran to the living room and found his mother dying. This part gets absolutely wild, because while Maxwell was speeding away from his crime scene, a 14-year-old boy was desperately trying to save the life that Maxwell had just destroyed. Justin immediately called 911, his voice shaking, trying to stay calm while his world collapsed around him. The operator asking questions he didn't want to answer. "Is she breathing? Can you stop the bleeding?" He pressed his hands against his mother's wounds, trying to hold together what 10 bullets had torn apart. Blood on his fingers, his mother's life literally slipping through his hands. Neighbors heard the commotion and rushed over. Someone attempted CPR, everyone doing everything they could to reverse what Maxwell had made irreversible. But it was too late. Latrese Morris-Dorsey took her final breaths in her 14-year-old son's arms, while her 4-year-old daughter stood nearby, forever changed by what she'd witnessed. Maxwell's accidental shooting story was about to meet reality, and reality doesn't lie. The silence after gunshots is deafening. Justin Dorsey held his dying mother while sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors flooded the scene. But nothing could undo what Earl Maxwell had just destroyed. Latrese Morris-Dorsey was gone, and 2 children were left to process the unthinkable. 4-year-old Jada had just watched her entire world explode. The woman who made her breakfast, who sang her to sleep, who promised to always protect her, murdered right in front of her eyes. That kind of trauma doesn't just heal. It rewires a child's brain forever. But Jada wasn't just a witness. She became the prosecution's most important voice. She was old enough to tell everyone, "My mom is dead. He killed my mom. My mom is shot," her Aunt Megan Morris would later say. A preschooler forced to become a murder witness because her mother's ex-boyfriend couldn't handle rejection. Meanwhile, Maxwell was racing through Detroit streets, probably thinking he'd gotten away with it. Maybe he thought a 4-year-old couldn't identify him. Maybe he believed his ridiculous accidental shooting story would hold up. He was wrong on both counts. The Detroit Police Department immediately issued a manhunt. Maxwell's description went out citywide. Black male, 5'8", heavy build, bald head, beard, stained yellow teeth. Armed and extremely dangerous. Do not approach. But here's what nobody expected. Maxwell's conscience, or maybe his cowardice, got the better of him. June 20th, 2017. 2 days after destroying the Morris-Dorsey family, Earl Maxwell walked into a police station and surrendered. Nobody saw this coming. Most killers run. They disappear into other states, change their appearance, try to start new lives. Maxwell turned himself in like he was returning a library book. Why? Maybe the guilt was eating him alive. Maybe he realized that a 4-year-old eyewitness and a 14-year-old survivor weren't going to let him disappear. Maybe he finally understood that 20 threatening phone calls to Paul Dorsey had created a paper trail that led straight to his door. Or maybe he was just tired of running from what he'd done. June 22nd, 2017. Maxwell appeared in court for his arraignment. The charges read like a nightmare. First-degree murder and felony firearm violations. He shook his head as each charge was announced, like he couldn't believe his own actions had consequences. But the real devastation was happening 72 miles away, where James Morris was trying to process losing his daughter on Father's Day. "I had 3 daughters. I had 3 beautiful daughters, and he put a hole in my heart," James told reporters, his voice breaking with every word. The timing made everything worse. Father's Day was supposed to be about celebrating family, about dads spending time with their children. Instead, James Morris got a phone call that his daughter was dead. His daughters are all he has, family members explained. For him to get this call on Father's Day, the one day where he's supposed to be celebrating with his girls, he gets a call saying this coward ripped his life from him. The ripple effects were devastating. Justin and Jada weren't just grieving their mother, they were processing trauma that would follow them forever. Extended family members were trying to hold everyone together while dealing with their own grief. And somewhere in a jail cell, Earl Maxwell was probably rehearsing his accidental shooting defense, convinced he could lie his way out of what 10 bullets and 2 child witnesses had made undeniable. The legal system was about to teach him otherwise. Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy had already seen the evidence: the threatening phone calls, the 10 gunshots, the 4-year-old witness, the 14-year-old survivor. Maxwell's lies were about to meet the truth, and the truth was going to destroy him. October 2017. Earl Maxwell sits in a Wayne County courtroom, probably thinking his sob story about accidental shooting will save him from a life sentence. He's about to learn that juries aren't stupid. Maxwell's defense strategy was insulting to everyone's intelligence. Picture this. He wants the court to believe that while reaching for a cigarette lighter, he accidentally pulled out a loaded gun. Latrese tried to hug him, she grabbed his wrist, and somehow, magically, the gun fired 10 times. 10. Separate accidental shots. The prosecution wasn't having it. Paul Dorsey took the witness stand and destroyed Maxwell's entire defense with one simple testimony. Those 20 threatening phone calls weren't angry outbursts. They were premeditated murder announcements. He called me at least 20 times because she had cut her phone off, so the only person he could get in touch with is me, Paul testified. The courtroom went silent when Paul repeated Maxwell's exact words. "When I see your wife, I'm going to kill her. Not, I might hurt her. Not, I'm really angry. Kill her. Specific, deliberate, premeditated." Second time he called, he reiterated he was going to hurt her. Paul continued. "I told her everything from the beginning to when he cooled down." This part gets absolutely wild because Maxwell's own words were convicting him. 2 weeks before the murder, he'd literally announced his intentions to kill Latrese. Then he showed up at her house and did exactly what he promised. The medical examiner's testimony was devastating. 10 gunshot wounds, shots to the back of the head, defensive wounds on her hands where she tried to protect herself. This wasn't some struggle gone wrong. This was an execution. But Maxwell stuck to his ridiculous story. Even when faced with overwhelming evidence, he maintained that shooting someone 10 times was somehow accidental. The jury wasn't buying what he was selling. Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy made sure everyone understood the true horror of this crime. What makes these allegations especially disturbing is that the crime was committed in the presence of one of the deceased's children and within earshot of another. They will have to live with these images for the rest of their lives. 4-year-old Jada's testimony, delivered through child advocacy specialists, was the final nail in Maxwell's coffin. She'd watched him murder her mother. No amount of lies could erase what she'd witnessed. May 2018, reality finally hit Earl Maxwell like a freight train. Faced with first-degree murder charges and a mountain of evidence, Maxwell did what cowards do when cornered. He took a plea deal, guilty to second-degree murder and felony firearms violations.
I was wrong. I was wrong, and I'm sorry, and ain't no way I can repay this. It's between me and the Lord now. I just want to let y'all know that I have repented with every bone in my body, and I can never take this back down here on this earth. And I just want to let y'all know that the Lord gave me a dream that she's with the Lord. And that's the only thing that kept me from killing myself.
June 7th, 2018, sentencing day. 25 to 50 years in prison, Maxwell's accidental shooting defense had crumbled under the weight of truth. His threatening phone calls, his obsessive behavior, his calculated violence, all of it came back to destroy him. Tell me in the comments, is 25 years enough for destroying a family? Because while Maxwell was getting sentenced, Justin Dorsey was planning something that would honor his mother's memory in ways that coward could never understand. While Earl Maxwell was rotting in his prison cell, something extraordinary was happening in Detroit. Justin Dorsey was transforming his trauma into triumph. Most 14-year-olds who watch their mother die in their arms don't recover. They drop out of school, turn to drugs, let the darkness consume them. The statistics on children who witness domestic violence are heartbreaking. Depression, anxiety, behavioral problems that last decades. Justin chose a different path. He enrolled at Livonia's Clarenceville High School as a freshman, carrying baggage that would crush most adults. Teachers didn't know what to expect. How do you educate a kid who's seen hell? I struggled at first, Justin admits. The understatement of the century. But here's where Justin's story becomes absolutely incredible. Instead of letting his mother's murder destroy his future, he decided to honor her memory by achieving everything she never could. Latrese Morris-Dorsey had been a physical therapist, helping people heal from their worst injuries. She dedicated her life to recovery and rehabilitation. Justin was going to finish what she started.
To achieve what I really wanted, to be a football player, to go to school, I had to stop all that and actually get right. I had to, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have what I want right now.
Stop all of what? The anger, the grief, the rage that could have easily turned him into another statistic. Instead, Justin channeled every emotion into 2 things: academics and athletics. 6 days a week in the gym, taking his aggression out on the football field instead of letting it eat him alive. Every tackle was for his mother. Every sprint was running away from the trauma that tried to define him. The grades came next, not just passing, excelling. While other kids were worried about social media and dating, Justin was grinding toward a 4 GPA. 4 years of this. 4 years of turning pain into purpose while his little sister Jada was growing up without the mother who should have been there for every milestone. Hold up. This is where it gets crazy. May 2021. Justin Dorsey walks across that graduation stage with perfect grades and a full scholarship to Ferris State University. Not just any scholarship, a football scholarship that would pay for his entire education. The major he chose? Physical therapy, the exact same career his mother had dedicated her life to before Maxwell stole her future. During his graduation speech, Justin said words that would make Latrese proud. I knew at the end of the day I had to work hard for what I want, and that was to go to college on a scholarship, play my favorite sport, and major in what my mom always wanted to, just to get the degree she didn't have. Think about that for a second. A kid who watched his mother get murdered decided to complete her unfinished dreams. While Maxwell was counting down his prison sentence, Justin was building the life his mother never got to finish. Because I knew I wanted it for myself. We all want to be successful, but first you have to want it for yourself, and that is what I achieved. The community rallied around Justin's success. Longtime family friends set up a GoFundMe to help with college expenses because this kid's story needed to continue. She supported me with everything and just for me to achieve my dreams and goals, Justin said. I wish she could see me. But here's the thing. She can see him. Every patient Justin will help walk again, every life he'll touch as a physical therapist, every moment he chooses healing over hatred. That's Latrese Morris-Dorsey's legacy, living on through her son. Maxwell took her life, but he couldn't kill her impact, and Justin Dorsey was just getting started. Let's talk about the red flags everyone missed, or chose to ignore. Earl Maxwell didn't just snap one day. This murder was telegraphed for months, through behavior patterns that scream danger to anyone paying attention. The tattoo obsession. Maxwell had Latrese permanently inked on his arm. Not a romantic gesture, but a branding. In his mind, she belonged to him forever. When someone tattoos your name on their body without your consent, that's not love. That's ownership. The stalking escalation. When Latrese cut off her phone, Maxwell didn't respect her boundaries. He found Paul Dorsey and made him the unwilling messenger. 20 phone calls in 2 weeks isn't persistence, it's harassment. The explicit death threats, when I see your wife, I'm going to kill her, not I'm angry or I miss her. Kill her. Specific, direct, premeditated. The manipulation tactics. After making death threats, Maxwell called back to take them back, trying to seem reasonable. Classic abuser behavior. Escalate then de-escalate to confuse victims and witnesses. The jealousy trigger. Court testimony revealed Maxwell was furious that Latrese might be dating someone new. For abusers, their ex moving on isn't just rejection. It's the ultimate betrayal that often triggers lethal violence. They don't want you to know this, but domestic violence murders are rarely spontaneous. They're the final act in a pattern of escalating control and threats. Paul Dorsey warned Latrese. She knew the danger, but knowing someone wants to kill you and stopping them are two completely different battles. Sometimes awareness isn't enough to survive obsession. What happens next will blow your mind. While Maxwell serves his decades behind bars, Justin Dorsey is changing lives at Ferris State University. Every patient he'll help recover, every person who walks again because of his skills. That's Latrese Morris-Dorsey's dream, living on. But here's the twist that'll give you chills. Justin chose physical therapy not just to honor his mother, but to heal others. the way he wished someone could have healed his family's trauma. Maxwell destroyed one life but accidentally created a healer. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to help spread Justin's incredible story of resilience. Share your own story of overcoming tragedy in the comments. Let's build a community of survivors who refuse to let darkness win. Final question that'll keep you thinking. What would you have done if you were Paul Dorsey and got those threatening calls? Because sometimes, knowing danger is coming isn't enough to stop it, but surviving it? That's where real strength begins.